We've also got this area of patchy rain into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, again giving some sleet and snow over the hills. But eventually that moves through and we see a gradual lift in temperatures into next week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£50,000 in tax-free cash is like having over £4,000 each month to play with for a whole year. And it could be yours in the biggest Great British giveaway so far. That could be a holiday each month, your mortgage covered, or just the ability to send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Figures released by the National Child Measurement Programme in 2024 found that almost 1 in 10 children was obese in the first year of school. Children living in deprived areas are twice as likely to be overweight as those in more affluent parts. Organisations like the Prepped Foundation are educating youngsters about healthy eating by giving them the skills to create balanced meals. TV chef James Golding has joined the foundation as the head of food education, and he joins me now to talk about the work. James, lovely to see you here.
Good to see you too. So Prepped used to be Table Talk Foundation, and it's now obviously Prep for Life, Prep for Knowledge. It's basically a charity to encourage kids to have a better understanding of food, but at the same time enjoy cooking and hopefully make better food choices in their life, as well as perhaps, you know, share the information we give them with their families.
Do you see them developing an understanding of the difference between a healthy and unhealthy food?
Yes, I think that, you know, kids tend to sort of be taught a lot of this in school, but being able to actually ask questions to a chef and be able to cook with produce which they know is one, that is going to be tasty because they've tasted it, but two, open their eyes to food that they may not have tried before. I think that, you know, I think a lot of kids say they don't want to try stuff because they don't like the way it looks, but the way that we produce our sessions, you know, we encourage the kids to try, and I think it really does open their eyes. It's very easy, I think, currently to be able to make easier choices, say fast food choices or you know, that type of thing, and it's obviously giving people the ability to make the right choices, but also the skills to be able to do it. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed and something that really needs to be pushed, and that's what we're doing as a charity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 9 p.m. and it's a very special Patrick Christys tonight. It's a Pakistani rape gang special from 10 p.m. We'll be live in Rotherham with Charlie Peters, who's on your screens right now. And I've got a box office panel of Tory Miriam Case, Reform's Matt Goodwin, Labour MP Barry Gardner, who voted against an inquiry, and human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, who I think has some interesting questions to answer. We're also going to be asking,
is this worth it? And I'm saying it to my husband. I'm saying, is it, you know, like, and but it's just a process you have to go through each and every time.
does Jess Phillips have to go?
The assumptions that were made included the assumption that a victim of child sexual abuse will swiftly report what's happened to them to the police.
Is Starmer responsible for a cover-up during his time as Director of Public Prosecutions?
Which must also be investigated from a criminal perspective, yes, given that it was a clear attempt to stir up religious hatred.
Is the fear of being called Islamophobic stopping a full inquiry now? And
will the government commit to urgently deporting all guilty foreign nationals involved, including family members who were aware of the crimes?
Should we deport family members of grooming gang monsters if they failed to report their partners? Also tonight.
The Bank of England for many years.
Rachel Reeves has crashed the economy. It's Rachel from accounts, hasn't it? Is she way out of her depth? And does she have to go? Also...
folks, because this party is on the march.
Reform on our joint top of a national opinion poll for the very first time. Anne Widdecombe is on to discuss that. On my panel for the first hour is ex-Tory MP Anna Firth. We've also got Lord Sean Bailey and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Oh, and can you tell me what's wrong here?
You're on 4.
Shopping, a place to eat. As you can see here behind me,
it's down to 2.
And Kamala Harris is clearly taking defeat well. Get ready, Britain, here we go. Does the Pakistani Muslim community have to do more to stop the rape gangs? Next.
Good evening. It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. The mayor of Los Angeles has said historic winds and extensive droughts created the perfect storm, but dropping winds mean firefighters are now able to tackle the fires from the air, and authorities are hopeful the tide is turning. The Hollywood Hills blaze, described as the most destructive in LA's history, has claimed 5 lives and forced 179,000 people to evacuate, including many A-list stars. Meanwhile, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have issued a statement on the fires, urging people to check in on disabled and elderly people. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who live in Montecito, have called for friends and neighbours of those impacted by the wildfires to open their homes. Staying in the US now, President Joe Biden has delivered the eulogy for the late former US President Jimmy Carter at his state funeral following his death last month at the age of 100. President Biden, who has declared a national day of mourning, spoke in front of all 4 living former presidents, saying Jimmy Carter made a powerful difference. Carter, a Nobel Prize winner and the 39th US president, is being remembered for his leadership and humanitarian work. Now, back in the UK, a Pakistani Muslim former Labour MP has backed calls for grooming gangs inquiry. Ex-Birmingham Labour MP Khalid Mahmood has told GB News that he backs a national public inquiry. He said, "We need to address the issues for the victims. They've had no respect or dignity given to them." It comes after Andy Burnham has split with Sir Keir Starmer to call for an inquiry into the grooming gangs. Speaking to a local radio station, the Labour mayor of Greater Manchester said he believed there was a case for a limited inquiry that draws on local reviews into historic child sexual exploitation. It's after Labour MPs rejected a Conservative push for a new national inquiry by 364 votes to 111. The Prime Minister has welcomed his French counterpart, Emmanuel Macron, at his country residence, Chequers. Sir Keir Starmer said the pair planned to discuss a number of issues of concern, including the situation in Ukraine and the Middle East, while Downing Street has previously indicated that illegal migration, tech and growth would also be on the agenda. The meeting comes ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration, and there have been concerns of what his return to the White House could mean for US support for Ukraine. Now, the Met Police has blocked plans for a pro-Palestine march near the BBC's headquarters in central London, as it will take place close to a synagogue. The force has used powers under the Public Order Act to prevent the Palestine Solidarity Campaign from gathering outside Broadcasting House in Portland Place this Saturday. Conditions enforced by the police will now prevent protesters from gathering in busy streets and surrounding areas. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
Very latest GB News direct to your smartphone. Sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Does the Pakistani Muslim community in Britain need to do more to prevent and condemn rape gangs? It's been exposed that there have been Pakistani grooming gangs in around 50 towns and cities across the UK. People know it's still going on, including Jess Phillips, who, in a former life, actually admitted it.
We're a year on from the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. Years and years worth of evidence. Rishi Sunak is doing nothing. And today, exactly what happened in Rochdale is happening in every single part of our country.
I look at cases like Quarry Ralph, a former taxi driver and preacher, who was jailed for 6 years but was released after just serving 2 years and 6 months. He is back living in Rochdale and works apparently as a takeaway delivery driver, meaning that he could end up delivering food to one of his victims. Does that seem to you like the local Pakistani Muslim community have told him he's not welcome there? Maybe they have. Our reporter, Charlie Peters, has been in Rotherham today. We're going to hear from him very shortly. A town where 1 in every 73 Pakistani Muslim men were prosecuted for child grooming offences, apparently. And nobody seemed to want to talk to him.
But we've not been able to speak to a single person. In about an hour's time, we've spent around the town centre speaking to dozens of people off camera. Most of them have said that they don't want to speak to us at all. One man, I have to say a white man, spoke to me about 5 minutes ago. He said that if you put your head above the parapet on this issue, you're going to get shot. He was very nervous. He didn't want to give his name. He said he wouldn't go on camera. He wouldn't even go anonymously to speak about this issue. There's a lot of nervousness in this town.
The Muslim Council of Britain, via their group, the Centre for Media Monitoring, released a report criticising GBNews and myself personally for talking about so-called grooming gangs. You can see it on your screens there. So-called grooming gangs. Is that not one of the major Muslim organisations in Britain appearing to question the reality of these gangs? Does that seem to you like they're desperate to address the issue? The group has said that they will support a national inquiry provided it follows evidence rather than prejudice. Now, people will say that there are a load of members of the Muslim community who do call this stuff out. Now, fair enough. But as Jordan Peterson alluded to, should we not be hearing a little bit more from them?
You talk about moderate Muslims. Like, I looked up the polling data today that Winston Marshall, for example, referred to when he interviewed Nigel Farage. And, you know, it's about 3/4 of UK Muslims would be perfectly content if Sharia law happened to be the, what would you say, the principle of the day for the UK as a whole. And that it would be fine if Islam became the national religion. Now, that's 75%. So, you know, a cynic would say, OK, just exactly where the hell are these moderates?
And the Labour Party's definition of Islamophobia, which they put in their 2019 manifesto, put, quotes, grooming gangs in inverted commas, there you go, and suggested that using the term in relation to Muslims was racist. The Muslim Vote organisation, which was a hugely influential political movement at the last election, demanded that Labour adopt that definition. The definition would have meant that, for example, right now, we would be accused of being Islamophobic for having this very conversation. Does that seem to you like the Muslim Vote organisation is desperate for the epidemic of Pakistani Muslim rape gangs to be discussed and addressed? Look, I can understand why normal, law-abiding, moderate Muslims would say, well, why do we have to call it out? We've not done anything wrong, and I really do get that. But if this was going on at this scale and making as many headlines as it is now, wouldn't you want to do everything you possibly could to be seen to be addressing it and stamping it out? So let's have that conversation then. Does the Pakistani Muslim community here in Britain need to do more to tackle the rape gangs? I'm joined now by GB News national reporter Charlie Peters in Rotherham. Charlie, thank you very much, mate. Great stuff that you've been doing for us for literally ever, actually. But you were in Rotherham today, and you didn't seem to see that there was a demand, a clamour for people to be coming out and talking about this stuff. Why not?
That's right, Patrick, and I've noticed that over several years when covering this scandal. I want to cast our minds back to September at Sheffield Crown Court when 6 men were in the dock, all British Pakistanis, being sentenced for gang raping an 11-year-old girl. They got between them 106 years, and as each of them were sentenced, their families in the public gallery were outraged. I remember seeing their relatives slamming the doors as they left the gallery, the judge having to ask them to remain calm. All too often, when covering this scandal, we've found evidence that there is a sense of clannishness, which means that perpetrators, when they finish their jail sentences, which are often extremely short, they are welcomed back into their community. There is no sense of community punishment. There isn't a great sense, I can tell, of shame about this issue. It often seems to be more one of denial. And that's what we found, I think, today on the streets of Rotherham, as we have so many times when looking into this issue. People just not wanting to speak about it. People saying they didn't want to hear about it. A direct quote I heard from one woman, in fact, who was being approached by GB News to ask for comment on the vote last night. She wouldn't talk about it. She didn't want to hear it. And that's a crisis that we've had, Patrick, because this scandal, it's been going on for decades. It's been a conspiracy of murmuring for so long, but now those murmurs are becoming roars as more and more people wake up to the nationwide atrocity that is the grooming gang scandal. The over 50 different towns and cities that this broadcaster has found in its lengthy investigations into this issue, and that has put significant pressure on the Labour government tonight. Earlier this afternoon, Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Manchester, he broke with Sir Keir Starmer's 3-line whip and his very direct approach to this issue by saying that he would support a limited national inquiry. We've gone to the Greater Manchester Combined Authority to ask for clarification on what limited is, because a lot of survivors have heard that term and thought, no, we want a proper review. And then also earlier this evening, we revealed that Khalid Mahmood, a former Labour MP, himself from the British Pakistani community, is also calling for a national public inquiry to get to the bottom of what caused this crisis and what more can be done to fix it.
Charlie, thank you very, very much. And a little bit later on, we are going to be hearing again from Charlie Peters out there for us in Rotherham, because we've actually got an exclusive poll to bring to you at 10 p.m. And that is about the percentage of people in Britain who wanted an inquiry and the percentage of people in Britain who would like to see the perpetrators of these rape gangs actually deported. What I can reveal for you is that it's massively out of kilter with what the Labour Party appears to think people want. But let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Former Conservative MP Anna Firth. We're also joined by Tory peer Lord Bailey and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larsler. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, all of you. And I'll start with you. Do you think that the British Pakistani community should be doing a bit more to either clamp down or call out grooming gangs?
Quite possibly, Patrick, but the person I know should have done more was Keir Starmer yesterday. And as a mother myself, with daughters, I am absolutely appalled. He was given the option by Kemi Badenoch to call a national inquiry, and then, of course, she would withdraw her amendment. He didn't accept it, and he has let down victims and parents and families up and down the country. And I hope very much we're going to see a U-turn on this. It's very interesting that we are now seeing Labour MPs and ex-Labour MPs like the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, coming out and saying what we all want to see is another...
Well, later on at 10 p.m, we've got Barry Gardner on. Now, he actually voted against this inquiry, so I think it'd be quite interesting to hear from him on that, won't it? Why? Actually, Sean, just keeping it cultural, as it were, for now. So why do you think that some people, like myself maybe, we feel as though maybe elements of the British Pakistani community could be doing a bit more? We look at people like Quarry Ralph there, who's just gone home, hasn't he, in Rochdale, after committing all these crimes, working as a delivery driver. Does that imply something there, maybe?
I'd have to say, no, they shouldn't be doing it, actually. That's what we have the police for. Imagine this was, I don't know, a load of white council workers. We wouldn't expect the community to look after them. What's interesting to me here and why I believe we need a national inquiry is why didn't the police do it? We must not be distracted by the idea that we have to change the law. It was illegal now and it was illegal then. It has always been illegal. We have to understand why people covered it up and why the police couldn't get forward, didn't have the bravery to step forward on the front foot. I spoke to a copper, right, it has nothing to do with this, he's a London-based copper, and he said to me, Sean, if you went into the office, right, and said something that you thought would risk your livelihood, would you do it? It's your family versus theirs. We need to give the police the political support in order to have these very difficult and tricky conversations, and that's what we're not doing. National inquiry, absolutely. Why? Because we've let down victims, we've let down communities, and we've let down the country. We must help the Pakistani community feel free. If you're a law-abiding Pakistani man, like most of them are, you don't want people looking at you sideways. The only way to avoid that is to have this...
Yes,
and
exactly.
Don't forget the Pakistani women in all of this.
Exactly.
Nor will we forget that Kemi Badenoch had 8 years, Anna, 8 years, including as the Minister for Children, and she didn't mention the issue once from the dispatch box, but she's jumped on the bandwagon now, hasn't she? Well done. You might get reselected, Anna. You might get reselected because you're parroting the Tory line.
Hold on a minute. You may not have been you almost certainly wouldn't have been at the Tory party conference, but I was. She stood...
8 years when she was the Minister, when our taxes were paying for her to be the Minister for Children, and she didn't mention it once, Anna. Not once.
A few months ago, when she was stabbed...
It's outrageous the Tories jumping on a bandwagon. Outrageous.
Can I just finish this point?
Go on. 14 years.
To be the Tory leader, she made a very powerful speech on the conference stage in which she specifically called
the British people paid for her to be the Minister for Children and Families, and she didn't mention it once. And you know that. You're too ashamed to mention it.
It's come up now. She has taken the action which...
Sorry, it wasn't an issue 10 years ago. It was hilarious. Come off it, Anna.
When she was speaking to be the Tory...
When she was the Minister, she ignored it.
Okay. Very clearly.
When she was the Minister, she ignored it.
I'll tell you someone who didn't ignore it, Jess Phillips. And she made an awful lot of critical comments about people at the time who could have done something. She is the Minister. She actually has the power to do something.
And we're implementing the 18...
I believed her. I really believed her. And I hope she does implement something. And let's be clear, it was the Tories who brought in the task force that led to 550...
I mean, I know you're both active members of the Conservative Party, OK? Yeah, OK. No, hang on, Patrick. Let me just say this, because it's absolutely clear. You're saying she's doing nothing. This government is implementing every single one of the recommendations of the Alexis J report, which was reported. Let me... Anna, can I speak?
Well, you interrupted.
No, I didn't interrupt you in your first contribution. I interrupted you afterwards. I didn't in your first contribution, Anna.
You don't think we need a review specifically into Pakistani rape gangs? Is that your position?
I think... So, first of all, we need to challenge this. The 18 recommendations of the J report, because we can have all the reviews we like, Patrick.
All but two were being actioned. All but two were being actioned, Matthew.
Let him talk. Go on.
Right. We can have all the reviews we like, OK? But if the recommendations aren't implemented, they mean nothing. No. The Tories didn't implement a single one of the 18 recommendations from the £200 million inquiry that we had. They need to happen. But I agree with Sean that Sean is absolutely right. We need to empower people like local police officers to ensure that they can have those conversations. On the issue of another £200 million national inquiry where nothing's done, no.
Stop on that issue, because what I want to drill down to in this section is specifically really about whether or not you think that the British Pakistani community needs to do more to police themselves.
Sure. On that question, I think the British Pakistani community can do more. I think we shouldn't see people taken back into the heart of the community when they've had offences. I think we need to ensure that nobody is driving a taxi if they've been, or a delivery van if they've been doing child grooming. On the other hand, we can't tar everybody with the same issue. And we remember when the IRA were at it, we couldn't say that every Irish person in Britain was responsible for the IRA's actions.
Let's be very clear. You cannot charge any community with implementing the law, because if you do, you'll get vigilantes. We have the police for that. What I'm trying to suggest is we should give the police the room to make sure these convictions happen. And I have to challenge my colleague here. So
friend, I hope, Sean.
Oh, friend. OK, friend. All but two of the recommendations were being implemented, and remember, it was us.
None of them had been done, Sean. None of them had been done. Fact.
You are totally ignoring. No, you know.
Well, I thought I was trying to listen to Sean.
Well, Well, you have listened to Sean, and I'm actually agreeing with what Sean is saying. The Conservative government completely accepted all 20 of the J recommendations.
And didn't implement a single... 18. They didn't implement a single one of them.
Being action.
You had the time, you didn't do it. Talk, tweet, no action against grooming gangs. And last night you voted down a bill that would have put measures in place that would have helped prevent tragedies like the Sarah Sharif tragedy. You voted against it because it's all talk, tweet.
Played party politics yesterday appallingly and...
Oh, come off it, Anna. Nice try to get reselected, but come off it.
All I'd say, if anybody doubts who's done what, look at the comments that Jess Phillips made and look at the action she isn't taking now.
Let's see the 18 actions put on the statute book.
Hey, look, fair enough.
I think we could do more than one thing at once, Matthew. That is...
Well, you didn't manage to do anything at once, did you? You didn't manage to do anything for 14 years because it's all talk.
All right, we need to get to, unfortunately, a break now, but thank you very much. It's a good start to the show, I feel. Coming up next, Liz Truss has today threatened legal action against Keir Starmer over his repeated claims that she crushed the economy. But on the day that the markets warn of an economic time bomb waiting to go off, what's really going on here? I mean, look, I can rephrase that. Should Rachel Reeves lose her job and is she way out of her depth? But coming up at 10 p.m, I'm joined by a top political panel for an in-depth take on the one issue everyone is talking about, grooming gangs. I've also got some exclusive polling for you, that's going to reveal just how out of touch Keir Starmer is with the public on this issue. A warning, my panel, a bit like this one apparently, do not get on, so don't miss that.
This Saturday at 8 p.m, tune in to a GB News Investigates documentary as we tell the full story of the grooming gang scandal.
My childhood has been stolen.
We will expose the cover-ups that have kept this national scandal under wraps for decades.
Not one person has been held accountable.
Our investigation uncovers the true scale of this outrage.
I want to see senior officials held legally to account.
On GB News, grooming gangs, Britain's shame.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Teenage girls are out drinking their male peers in the UK at a greater rate than any other European country. Yes, more than a third of 15-year-old girls in the UK report getting repeatedly drunk, compared to less than a quarter of boys the same age. I suppose what I'd say to this is, boys, what are you doing? Pull yourself together. Well, joining me now is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, and the former Labour advisor, Matthew Larser. Charlotte, you're going to have to speak up on behalf of girls the country over here. 15-year-old girls boozing much more than their male counterparts.
I think it's to do with the pain threshold, so we can handle hangovers better.
Do you get hangovers when you're 15 years old?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was drinking hooch and smelling...
Absolutely. Whatever happened to hooch?
Yeah. And I just think we can tolerate it better. Right. And I don't know, I grew up in that kind of wild child 90s drinking era. I'm showing my age a bit. And, God, we drank a lot as teenage girls. I mean, it's actually shocking now in retrospect.
Well, I also think in terms of boys versus girls, I wonder if we've got a bit of a thing about... I mean, the old cliché that girls develop quicker, they can become social quicker. They can certainly get into the pub more easily because they look older. Yeah. You know, because of makeup, etc. I wonder if the boys are all just, you know, in their rooms playing on their devices, as it were. You know, as people increasingly dominated by screens, whether in fact there's an issue about socialisation, about whether in fact, you know, the lads are not out there socialising.
They have little sips of wine in France from the age of like 12 and they're absolutely fine about it.
Yeah.
Whereas we all know what happens to British girls, because I was one of them. You turn, however, old enough to get a bottle of Smirnoff Ice, and boy, do you go for it, and until you're vomiting, basically.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
OK, all right, everybody. Well, welcome back. Now, just before we get stuck right in to our big debate, which is going to be about whether or not we should be deporting foreign criminals, should they ever have a right to appeal, it is, of course, time for the biggest and greatest Great British giveaway. Here's all the info you need.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
OK, so now, should foreign criminals be allowed to appeal their deportation orders? It's time for the head-to-head. The reason I'm asking this, you might have missed it today, but there are new statistics out from the Ministry of Justice which show that foreign offenders freed from prison in the UK went on to commit 40,000 more crimes after avoiding deportation in the space of just 4 years. Remarkable. The Home Secretary is legally obliged to deport any foreign criminal jailed for more than a year, as well as discretion to remove those jailed for under 1 year if such a move is considered to be in the public interest. However, many foreign criminals just go on to reoffend. They've sidestepped their removal from Britain under the, you guessed it, European Convention on Human Rights. So tonight I'm asking, should we stop allowing foreign criminals to appeal their deportation? Going head-to-head on this right now, our human rights lawyer David Hay and political commentator Anna McGovern. Both of you, thank you very much. Anna, I'll start with you. Should we ban them from being able to appeal their deportation if they're a foreign criminal, do you think?
I absolutely think that they should be banned. If you commit a crime in this country, you should not have the right to appeal. And I'm going to speak from some personal experience here. When I was 20 years old, I was finishing work and walking back home, less than a 10-minute walk, and I was being followed by some foreign person and actually got groped from behind, and then he started blowing kissing faces at me, speaking a foreign language. I had to scream and run away to get out of that situation. It took almost 2 years for me to get any answers on that, and there were other girls nearby the university campus that were being targeted by this specific individual as well. I personally believe that if you do commit a crime in this country, you should not have the right to appeal that.
OK.
We should be firm on this.
OK. Firstly, very sorry to hear that happened to you. Unfortunately, I suspect that is happening, by the way, to women and girls right across the country, I must say, and that, I think, tells its own story, doesn't it? But, David, I'll bring you in here now. You hear stories like that from Anna. Why should foreign criminals be allowed, who are been told they can be deported? I think we might have just lost David, have we? No? We're still on? OK. Sorry, everyone. Well, David, I'll stick with you in the hope that you are there. Why should foreign criminals who've been scheduled for deportation be allowed to appeal that, do you think? Because they can go on and commit more crimes, can't they?
foreign criminals should be deported, absolutely, but everyone in this country that goes through a judicial process should have the right of appeal. That should be there. That's needed to be there for effectively the rule of law and for us to have confidence in the justice system. Because if you have, whether it's a judge or in this case a politician, the Home Secretary, without any judicial process, being able to make a decision to deport someone and there's no right of appeal, that really isn't about the rule of law, and that's open to abuse. Now, I think the issue that we've got here is that, as I think Anna mentioned, this person has been in the country for 2 years. That shouldn't be happening. Appeals should not be taking years, and there shouldn't be any sidestepping and messing with the legislation. The legislation that you mentioned at the start, Patrick, that's over 2 decades old, but it's been messed about with and tweaked and gone around the houses. The appeal process should be quick and efficient and should take weeks.
OK, so just to reiterate some of these figures, the Ministry of Justice has now revealed that foreign offenders freed from prison in the UK went on to commit 40,000 more crimes after avoiding deportation. I suppose, Anna, from my perspective, I'm wondering, well, why would we have to put up with that?
Exactly, and I think the immigration processes that we have in this country are completely broken. The government are not able to handle it, and we've seen this demonstrated time and time again. I believe I read a statistic as well that foreign criminals are twice more likely to commit all kinds of crime than UK criminals. So I do believe that we need to take a firmer line on this in the UK. The government have completely lost control of it, and I think the statistics, they speak for themselves. The fact that foreign criminals who have applied for, they've appealed, and then they've gone on to commit more crimes in this country. So I think it is time to take a hard line stance. They should not be able to appeal.
In other countries, David, where they maybe have different legal systems, if there is that threat, or the knowledge, actually, that if you happen to be a foreigner and you commit a crime in a country, that you almost certainly are going to get deported, I wonder if we would be seeing stats like we see that 2/3 of arrests, no, not convictions, but arrests made when it comes to sexual assaults in the capital city were by foreign-born men. I do also wonder, there's the case in the grooming gang issue at the moment of Quarry Ralph, who was scheduled for deportation 11 years ago and shredded his Pakistani passport, and then we would therefore be making him stateless if we deported him. Do you not think the impression is given out to the world that Britain is a safe haven for foreign criminals?
Absolutely, I agree, and I completely agree with you, and I think it is, and it's because our justice system is effectively broken. So people know that if they come here and commit a crime, and after another crime, and even if they get, for instance, less than a 12-month sentence, they can carry on doing that, and they can stay here for a very long time. So we need to change that. That doesn't mean changing the right of appeal. That means making the justice system work, investing in it, and doing things quickly. And it's the same thing with the asylum process. With the reason why people come here is because they can get stuck in the system for years. That's obviously a helpful thing if you're not a proper asylum seeker. We need to change that.
Both of you, thank you very much. It was great to have you both on the show. Much appreciated. Human rights lawyer there, David Hay, thank you. And political commentator as well, Anna McGovern. All the best, both of you. Right, so coming up next, Liz Truss. Well, she's today threatened legal action against Keir Starmer over claims that he's crushed the economy. But, do you know what, this isn't really a Liz Truss story for me. This is a Rachel Reeves story. Have you seen the economic time bomb that she has let off? Should she now go? My wonderful panel, if they're all still here, are going to be kicking off about that shortly. But coming up at 10 p.m, yeah, we're doing something a bit different here. It is a grooming gang special. I'm going to be joined by a top political panel. We've got the likes of Miriam Cates, Matt Goodwin, Barry Gardner. We've got Peter Tatchell as well. And also I've got some exclusive polling that reveals just how out of touch Keir Starmer is when it comes to this issue of a full inquiry. So look, stay tuned. It's all going to go off.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to stay cold out there for the next 24 hours. Frost and ice are the main issues because for most it will be dry as this area of high pressure moves in. However, we keep the northerly winds for the north of Scotland, the east coast as well, so further showers coming through overnight. And where those showers fall onto the cold surfaces, of course, there's always the risk of icy patches. In fact, just about anywhere could see slippery surfaces by the start of Friday. For most, though, it's a clear night with freezing fog patches forming Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the Midlands. and temperatures dropping below -5, below -10 in places. It's not going to be quite as cold in the far southwest because here we've got an Atlantic front moving in. That's going to bring out breaks of rain with snow falling above 150 metres. So Dartmoor, a few more centimetres of snow. At lower levels, it's rain, but that rain falling onto cold surfaces, again, bringing the risk of ice. Elsewhere, for the vast majority of the UK, it's dry and clear as we start off Friday. But there will be those freezing fog patches, so poor visibility for parts of Northern Ireland into Wales, the Midlands, for example. And that fog will be slow to clear. Where we've got the fog, of course, temperatures will be suppressed throughout the day, not rising above 0 in many places. But where we've got the cloud and those outbreaks of rain, it's going to be a touch milder, although the rain will tend to fizzle away by the afternoon, and most places will end up dry, a few showers into the north and the east. Temperatures 0, 1 degrees at best in many places. Saturday starts off in a similar vein. We've got widespread freezing fog across central and eastern parts of England in particular. We've also got this area of patchy rain into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, again giving some sleet and snow over the hills. But eventually that moves through and we see a gradual lift in temperatures into next week.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back, everybody. OK, so, look, Liz Truss, didn't she? She said, she was going to try and sue Keir Starmer over claims that she crushed the economy. But what you're looking at on your screen right now is the live debt clock. So this is the UK's national debt growing at a rate of £5,170 per second. Rachel Reeves is being asked not to go off to China. Some people politely joked that maybe she was there to meet her handlers, but no, off to go to China, where she should be here answering questions about whether or not she has actually crashed the economy. So I'm just going to put this to my panel now, who have joined me again here.
And we didn't come to blows in the interview. We've had a cup of tea.
Save it for the telly. But, do you think that Rachel Reeves has crashed the economy here? We're talking about this in terms of the bond market, etc., is in turmoil. Do you think she has to go?
Well, it's too early to say she's crashed the economy. She's clearly way, way out of her depth, and the market is now losing confidence, and that is why we're seeing gilt rates go up. Now, we now have gilt rates at a higher level than they were under Liz Truss. Depends what she's going to do next. If she raises taxes, if she increases borrowing, we could well see us going into recession, and that will be 100% down to her and her appalling budget, because this is a government that came in saying it had one mission, and that was growth. It's delivered a budget which is going to do nothing of the sort.
Let's just deal with this headline. So Bloomberg's headline, right, was Britain's bond turmoil invokes memory of 1976 debt crisis, which is not exactly the headline that any chancellor wants to see, Matthew, is it? I mean, she has knackered it, hasn't she?
Well, look, I mean, it's not been. The day got better. It's not been a great day. These things always happen when chancellors are about to go off to an international conference. Actually, it did happen to Dennis Ely as well. Clearly, it's been worrying. I think that the markets will calm down, but I think it will be a lesson to the Labour Party that she's going to have very limited headroom for any extra spending to come forward. They've been clear today that they're not going to put taxes up. That if they do, because borrowing costs go up, take up more of the national cake, that they will actually have to cut, and that's not a good look. So it's a very difficult moment for her.
Sure. I mean, to be honest with you, it does look a little bit like Rachel from accounts, or was that complaints?
It was complaints.
It was complaints. Yeah, it was even worse, isn't it? It'd be better if she was actually in accounts. But that maybe she is out of her depth and she has to go.
There's a number of things. Firstly, I hope Keir Starmer starts to label her in the same way he's labelled Liz Truss once she crosses the Rubicon, because I do believe we are heading in a very bad direction. It is bizarre that I believe I'm right when I say this, we're the only country in Europe that charges people to employ people. And we all know if you charge for something, you get less of it. Yeah. And the single biggest problem I believe we have in our economy is the number of people who are economically inactive.
I agree.
Because that means our public services cost an inordinate sum of money that they shouldn't cost. That's the key thing. The other thing as well, all of the plans she's moved forward, even if you believe in Keynesian economics or you're right down the other end in liberal economics, she has done neither. We are not going to get growth, which is an awful shame because our economy is going to tank because of it. And there's an outside threat. The state of the German economy and the wider Eurozone is also weak. We have now weakened ourselves. So, unfortunately, it looks like we're all heading down.
And we might have Trump tariffs as well.
Well, Trump tariffs, unfortunately, are a real possibility because they might work for America. They won't work for us. That's clear.
Absolutely.
But they might work for America.
The problem she's got, though, is a credibility one. She's sewn herself in far too tight.
Yes.
She's actually implemented a jobs tax, which she herself knows is the wrong thing to do because she herself said publicly putting up employers' national insurance is a jobs tax. She's gone and done just that. And now, of course, we're seeing the consequences of that, which is going to come through in higher inflation and less jobs for British people. That's why we're in the position we're in. It's a very, very bad position, and she is way out of her depth. I mean, she probably does have to go for
Look, Matthew, she basically lied on her CV, right? And this is what we're seeing.
She did work at the Bank of England as an economist. She did work at the Halifax. I think she wasn't an economist all the time she was at the Halifax, and she should have had a correct LinkedIn. But she was. I mean, I went to her 19th birthday party
living the reality
when she was doing PPE at Oxford.
The better question to ask is who would they replace her with?
Darren Jones would be the number 2 who we sent today. Would be that's what people speculating. Look, I think I agree with Anna that on the headroom issue, that is the big issue, that she hasn't left to meet her fiscal rules. She hasn't left a lot of headroom. What I can just say is my image of the night is saying that she's done what Sean's saying she's done what Liz Truss has done. She's got this image of her sending Keir a cease and desist letter like Liz Truss has done today and war in number 10. We're not there yet. They're not at war yet, but it's tricky.
I think the thing she's done is worse because Liz Truss, like it or love it, she caused a shock. She disturbed the market. What I think Rachel Reeves might have done is set a direction of travel. It wasn't the markets who grumbled too hard in the beginning. It was business at large, and they are our employers. And I think that's where the problem lies. And I think the deep problem is this fantasy that the Labour Party have been labouring under, that there was a £22 billion black hole. There simply was not. Even the OBR, who cannot be accused of being Tory supporters, said they don't recognise that. The point is, the Chancellor has to be much more realistic with the reality she's got and what she's going to do going forward. And I think we're in a big problem because she cut herself off from raising income tax or corporation tax. She's raising all these other small taxes that have profound...
We can argue about the size of the black hole, but there were things like the £3.5 billion for the blood contaminated scandal, which weren't budgeted for, which the money had to be found for. I mean, whether we can argue it's 20 or 15 or whatever, there was unfunded.
That's important, though.
But do you both agree, though, that there is a distinct lack of imagination and vision from this government, and there isn't a growth strategy? And until we get a growth strategy...
I agree that in the early days, I think that the government's biggest mistake, which is the biggest mistake overall, not just in the economy.
So there it is again.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's national debt clock, so going up at a rate of 5,100.
And it was going up at the same level over the last few
We
years.
have the money to give to dish it out to the public sector. What's she going to do now? What is Rachel Reeves going to do now?
Might have a teacher strike.
Is it the last budget we'll ever see from Rachel?
What she's going to have to do is cut public spending, because she has said quite clearly in November she's not coming back for more tax rises, she's not coming back for more borrowing. So either she's going to actually go back on that,
Right.
another breaking of her promise, or she's going to have to do something about public spending.
What's really bizarre to me, we have what feels like a left-wing Labour government, but they haven't instituted any left-wing sort of economic tactics. Where is this big public investment? They've given money to their friends in the unions, but what about the public arena? We have infrastructure challenges, all sorts. Why are they not doing that?
Well, there is his last budget, do you think?
No. Rachel will be imposed, but the government as a whole needs to make it clear that it's not giving that dual message which it gave before the budget in that long gap, that it's actually having a message of constructive on things like getting more people into work, which I agree with Sean on. It's about having them, and I think we need an upbeat government. Absolutely, we've got some consensus.
And that's the point to end it. Right, OK, coming up at 10 p.m. tonight, I'm going to be joined by a top political panel, not that this wasn't one, of course, to take on all of the things when it comes to grooming gangs. I've also got some exclusive polling to reveal to you in about 15 minutes' time that shows just how out of touch the public is on Starmer when it comes to an inquiry and when it comes to deportations. You are not going to want to miss that. But next, Reform UK is now at top of a national poll, joint for the first time ever. Is Farage's dream of number 10 becoming a reality? We've got Anne Widdecombe on shortly. Stay tuned.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny skies in southern and eastern Spain this weekend, but there will be a few showers heading into Portugal. Largely fine conditions across the Canaries. Lots of sunshine here. There are those showers heading into Portugal, sunny in southern Spain and up towards Barcelona, of course for the Balearics as well. A few showers drifting across southern Italy. Warm in Rome for the time of year, but it will turn cooler here as well. A few showers across Croatia. Small chance of a shower or two in Cyprus on Saturday as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Before she even met Prince Harry, her passion was sharing recipe tips, lifestyle, wellness techniques, because she had a blog, quite a successful blog actually, called The Tig. Of course, that had to be shut down when she became a working member of the royal family. We all know the turmoil that happened with Megxit. Now that her and Harry have come out the other side of that and have signed multi-million-pound deals with Netflix and others, this is the proof in the pudding, pardon the pun, and it is basically, I suspect, the TIG 2.0, because we've got everybody, she has managed to get everybody talking about this. You know, the royal family has been dragged through turmoil over the last few years because partly due to Harry and Meghan's decision, partly due to the royal family's decision, but this is kind of what's come out the other side.
Which is a load of nonsense. I mean, the fact, because it's all totally fake, isn't it? I mean, it's not her house, it's not her kitchen. She clearly doesn't spend her days picking strawberries and collecting honey from bees. I mean, the whole thing's just a fabrication.
Well, it's Netflix fantasy, isn't it? So I think any lifestyle programme such as this tends to not be filmed in the host's house. It's reportedly a $5 million rented house. The cooker itself is worth about $15,000. Even the pans are about $80 as well that she is using. So yes, Stephen, you're right. It is kind of fake and fantasy, but then, of course, that's how these lifestyle programmes are made. It's whether the question will be when you watch the series, if you decide to watch the series, is Meghan trying to portray herself as this authentic self, or is she going to make it clear that, you know, this is just like the best bits of her life? But she's got lots of celebrity friends involved in it, including her makeup artists and others as well. Prince Harry makes an appearance.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I'm Patrick Christys. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Patrick Christys. Tonight, coming up, I'm going to be joined very soon by a stellar political panel. We're going to have a Grooming Gang special. We'll take you live to Rotherham, and I've got an exclusive new poll for you as well. Before that, let's talk about another poll. This time, Reform UK are in first position nationally for the first time. So there you go. It's on your screens now if you're watching us on telly. Voting intention surveys from Find Out Now has Reform joint top with Labour on 25%, 5 points ahead of the Tories, 14 ahead of the Lib Dems. I'm joined now by Reform UK spokesperson Anne Widdecombe. Anne, well, victory is within your grasp, is it not?
Well, we have another 4 years to go. And what we've got to do is to build solidly on this early success. And the fact is that the polls have been showing us increasing our share of vote now for some time. So, I mean, yes, this is a very, very significant point. But we've got a lot of building still to do, and we're doing it steadily and calmly.
A lot of people thought that the recent hoo-ha in relation to Elon Musk, Tommy Robinson as well, would have negatively impacted Nigel in the polls. It doesn't seem to have happened yet.
No, I always reckoned it would have a positive impact for two reasons. First of all, most people do not like Tommy Robinson and understand fully why Nigel would resist having him in Reform. But secondly, of course, Nigel stood up to Elon Musk. And just because Elon Musk took a particular view, Nigel simply said very calmly that he disagreed, and that was it. And I think that people who worried a bit that we might be too much in the pockets of the Americans can now rest assured. So I think it actually had a positive impact for those two reasons.
I wonder whether or not most people, like you say, don't like Tommy Robinson, or whether or not they're prepared to accept that he was right about the grooming gangs issue, and when it comes to who you're actually going to vote for, Tommy Robinson within a Reform party or not, is there actually another alternative anyway, other than voting for Nigel, who's still very, very strong on the issue? But what do you make of that fact that, OK, you're level with Labour, but you're actually, I think it was 4 points ahead of the Tories, really? Is that something that Nigel cares more about? Do you think he cares more about beating the Tories than beating Labour?
I think all that Nigel cares about is winning the next election and getting the country back to some common sense, some proportionality, and to be run on the basis of incentivising business, not penalising it, and to get free speech back. And I think that's what Nigel wants. And he's quite happy to beat both major parties in the pursuit of those objectives. And he himself has frequently said, it isn't just the Tories we've got to beat, we've got to attract Labour voters as well. And we've been doing that on quite a scale, actually, for some months.
I suppose the question is now, and we don't know the answer to that at the moment, is what's the ceiling? A lot of people thought the ceiling might be 10%, then it went up to 15%, then it went up to 20%, now it's 25%. But what numbers are you looking at, seriously, you're going to have to look at because of our voting system if you want to win the next election?
I don't think we're looking at a particular number. I always think that's a trap that politicians fall into far too easily. So forgive me if I dodge it. I don't think we're looking at a particular number. We are looking to win, and the numbers that we need and the percentages that we need are those necessary to win. As I say, there's 4 years to go, and there's a lot to do in that time.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, like you just said before, 4 years or whenever the next election is a very long time. Anything can happen. Kemi Badenoch may surge, Keir Starmer might pull a rabbit out the hat or indeed just be replaced. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. But Anne, thank you very, very much for your time this evening. It's always a pleasure. It's Anne Widdicombe, the Reform UK spokesperson. Now, what I want to talk to you about now is what's coming up in just a few minutes' time, because it really is a very special final hour to Patrick Christys tonight. I'm going to be joined by a top political panel for an in-depth take on the one issue that everyone is talking about. It's grooming gangs, it's Pakistani rape gangs. I've also got some exclusive polling that's going to reveal just how out of touch Keir Starmer is with the public on this issue. And I'm going to be asking a series of crucial questions. Does Keir Starmer have questions to answer over his role when he was Director of Public Prosecutions? Does Jess Phillips have to go for failures while she's in post? Do you think, find it acceptable as a country to deport the families of the grooming gang monsters who may or may not have covered up for their relatives? So we're going to be talking about all of that. I've got Miriam Kate, Matt Goodwin, Barry Gardner and Peter Tatchell. And yes, I will be asking him some tough questions as well. Stay tuned.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to stay cold out there for the next 24 hours. Frost and ice are the main issues because for most it will be dry as this area of high pressure moves in. However, we keep the northerly winds for the north of Scotland, the east coast as well, so further showers coming through overnight. And where those showers fall onto the cold surfaces, of course, there's always the risk of icy patches. In fact, just about anywhere could see slippery surfaces by the start of Friday. For most, though, it's a clear night with freezing fog patches forming Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the Midlands, and temperatures dropping below -5, below -10 in places. It's not going to be quite as cold in the far southwest because here we've got an Atlantic front moving in. That's going to bring out breaks of rain with snow falling above 150 metres. So Dartmoor, a few more centimetres of snow. At lower levels, it's rain, but that rain falling onto cold surfaces, again, bringing the risk of ice. Elsewhere, for the vast majority of the UK, it's dry and clear as we start off Friday. But there will be those freezing fog patches, so poor visibility for parts of Northern Ireland into Wales, the Midlands, for example. And that fog will be slow to clear. Where we've got the fog, of course, temperatures will be suppressed throughout the day, not rising above 0 in many places. But where we've got the cloud and those outbreaks of rain, it's going to be a touch milder, although the rain will tend to fizzle away by the afternoon, and most places will end up dry, a few showers into the north and the east. Temperatures 0, 1 degrees at best in many places. Saturday starts off in a similar vein. We've got widespread freezing fog across central and eastern parts of England in particular. We've also got this area of patchy rain into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, again giving some sleet and snow over the hills. But eventually that moves through and we see a gradual lift in temperatures into next week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang. From treats to holidays to fun times with the family, a totally tax-free £50,000 in cash could make you feel alive in 2025. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
Is he indecisive? incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. and welcome to a very special Patrick Christys tonight. It's a Pakistani rape gang and grooming gang special. We're going to be live in Rotherham with Charlie Peters, who's on your screens right now. I've got a box office panel of former Tory MP Miriam Kate, Reform's Matt Goodwin, we've got Labour MP Barry Gardner and human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. And we're going to be asking all sorts of stuff.
Is this worth it? And I'm saying it to my husband. I'm saying, is it, like, but it's just a process you have to go through each and every time.
Does Jess Phillips have to go?
The assumptions that were made included the assumption that a victim of child sexual abuse will swiftly report what's happened to them to the police.
Is Keir Starmer responsible for a cover-up during his time as Director of Public Prosecutions?
The incident from Monday, 22nd of March, must also be investigated from a criminal perspective, yes, given that it was a clear attempt to stir up religious hatred.
And is fear of being called Islamophobic stopping a full inquiry? Plus,
will the government commit to urgently deporting all guilty foreign nationals involved, including family members who were aware of the crimes?
Should we deport family members of grooming gang monsters if they failed to report their partners? Get ready, Britain, here we go. This is a grooming gang special. Next.
Good evening. It's just gone 10 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. The mayor of Los Angeles has said historic winds and extensive droughts created the perfect storm. But dropping winds mean firefighters are now able to tackle the fires from the air, and authorities are hopeful the tide is turning. The Hollywood Hills blaze, described as the most destructive in LA's history, has claimed 5 lives and forced 179,000 people to evacuate, including many A-list stars. Meanwhile, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have issued a statement on the fires, urging people to check in on disabled and elderly people. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who live in Montecito, have called for friends and neighbours of those impacted by the wildfires to open their homes. Andy Burnham has split with Sir Keir Starmer to call for a national inquiry into grooming gangs. Speaking to a local radio station, the Labour mayor of Greater Manchester said he believed there was a case for a limited national inquiry that draws on local reviews into historic child sexual exploitation. It's after Labour MPs rejected a Conservative push for a new national inquiry by 364 votes to 111. This government has removed the highest number of illegal migrants from the UK in more than half a decade, according to the Home Office. 16,400 immigration offenders and foreign criminals have been returned in a crackdown on abuse of immigration systems. It comes amid a new sanctions regime introduced to target people smuggling gangs and boost border security as part of the government's plan. Over 36,000 people crossed the Channel in 2024, fewer than in 2022, but still a major concern for ministers. The Prime Minister has welcomed his French counterpart, Emmanuel Macron, at his country residence Chequers. Sir Keir Starmer said the pair plan to discuss a number of issues of concern, including the situation in Ukraine and the Middle East, while Downing Street has previously indicated that illegal migration, tech and growth would also be on the agenda. The meeting comes ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration, and there have been concerns about what his return to the White House could mean for the US support for Ukraine. The Met Police has blocked plans for a pro-Palestine march near the BBC's headquarters in central London, as it will take place near a synagogue. The force has used powers under the Public Order Act to prevent the Palestine Solidarity Campaign from gathering outside Broadcasting House in Portland Place this Saturday. Conditions enforced by the police will now prevent protesters from gathering in the busy street and the surrounding area. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to a very special edition of Patrick Christys. Tonight I am joined by a stellar political panel. We've got former Tory MP Miriam Case, we've got Labour MP Barry Gardiner, Reform's Matt Goodwin and human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell. But before that, GB News can exclusively reveal now, that more than 75% of UK adults want a national inquiry into grooming gangs. Last night, not a single Labour MP voted in favour of a Tory amendment that would have forced a national inquiry. The YouGov poll, commissioned by the Women's Policy Centre, reveals that a staggering 76% of Brits backed calls for a national inquiry into the sexual abuse and rape of children by grooming gangs. And 77% support measures to revoke British nationality and deport those with dual nationality found guilty of grooming and raping young girls. And for reaction to that exclusive polling, I'm joined now by GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters, who is in Rotherham for us tonight. And Charlie, you have been talking to victims and survivors in Rotherham, and I imagine that the results of that poll chime in with what you've heard from them.
That's right, Patrick, and it's survivors all around the country who I've been speaking to this week who say they are demanding that public inquiry. Some survivors, particularly in Oldham, have not backed the call on a national level, but instead want a government-led inquiry specifically into Oldham. But generally speaking, Patrick, as you've seen in that poll, there is a widespread demand for that call for a national inquiry among the public. But it's the second stat you refer to, that demand for deportation as well, that I think is very key. 76% backing calls for the deporting of those who have a dual nationality but are convicted of child abuse and are members of grooming gangs. Now, Patrick, when I saw that poll shared exclusively with GB News earlier this evening, I went through my archive, gathered over several years of these sorts of cases, and I looked through the legal data I've got. Patrick, as far as I can tell, I know of more people who have fled Britain because they are facing investigation or are set to be investigated over grooming abuses than I know of men who have been deported after a conviction for grooming gang offences. More people are fleeing this country, according to my research, looking into this for years, than they are being deported over grooming gang abuse. It's really quite astonishing. And you were drawing the attention of our viewers towards the case of Kari Ralph in Rochdale, now working as a delivery driver 10 years after he was convicted of being a member, not just a member, sorry, a ringleader of an abuse gang in Rochdale. A gang so abusive, I would refer to it as being a torture gang, what those girls endured in that Greater Manchester town. He ran a house which was essentially a paedophile honesty box where men could sign their names at a piece of paper on the front of the door and then pay whatever they owed for access to those young white girls at the end of the month. He's still in Britain, Patrick. He is still in Britain. Now, under the Nationality and Borders Act of 2022, the United Kingdom can apply visa penalties to countries that refuse to accept grooming gang deporters. Last year, the former Safeguarding Minister, Laura Farris, said that she would look into that, but as far as I can tell, it's never been done.
Charlie, thank you very much, as ever, and we'll chat to you again very soon. Charlie Peters, therefore, who's in Rotherham. Miriam, your reaction to the results of that poll, then, former Tory MP, that apparently 76% of the country wanted an inquiry, 77% wanted people deported if they had committed a crime.
Well, I don't think they're surprising. I mean, this issue has obviously had wall-to-wall coverage over the last week and a bit. And not only have we found out lots more about the perpetrators, but also about the hideousness of the crimes that they committed, which I don't think was widely known about before. But I do have I mean, I absolutely agree that we should deport people who aren't British nationals. I mean, that goes without saying. I do think we should be careful about a public inquiry. Yes, of course, we need justice. There are many more people who should be in prison, many more people who should have lost their jobs. But we don't have a great record on national inquiries in this country actually achieving anything. And even the last inquiry that didn't fully cover some of those recommendations, I think, are pointless unless we have total culture change in this country about what it means for safeguarding.
OK.
So I'm not convinced it's the right answer.
Well, just before I come to you, Barry, because you voted against an inquiry, didn't you, yesterday?
No, I voted for the motion, but we can come to that distinction.
Because Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, has broken ranks with the Labour Party. Here's what he had to say.
In my view, the government was right to reject that form of opportunism. But I did hear last night, coming out of that debate, ministers saying they are open to discussing issues now with survivors. And I will add my voice into this and say I do think there is the case for a limited national inquiry that draws on reviews like the one that I commissioned and the one we've seen in Rotherham, the one we've seen in Telford.
All right. So, Barry, I know that you've got views on this. Obviously, I do put it to you that the public perception is that you voted against an inquiry into Pakistani rape gangs.
Well, let's be clear. What I voted for yesterday was to take action to stop children being abused, because that was what was contained in the bill that was before Parliament. What would have happened if the Conservative amendment had been passed is precisely nothing. Nothing would have happened because it simply threw out the bill. It didn't bring in an inquiry, it did nothing of the sort. It simply opposed the measures that were in the bill, measures such as ensuring that there was sharing of information, that children couldn't be taken out of institutions, all the things that the J inquiry, and many people perhaps don't realise, we've already had a national inquiry. It took
Not specifically into
no, and let's get there.
No.
But we've had a national inquiry. There were recommendations that came out of that, and for 2 years, the previous Conservative government did not implement a single one of those recommendations. So what we were doing yesterday was trying to get on, implement the recommendations, safeguard children. The Conservative amendment would have stopped us from doing it.
Come back to that then, because you were saying, no, that's not true.
Well, I think there are 2 points, Patrick. I think the first is the polling shows us how woefully out of touch most people in Westminster are on this issue. The vast majority of Brits want a national inquiry. They want to deport dual nationals who are convicted of raping children. That is unequivocal. Will Keir Starmer listen? I suspect inevitably he's going to get bounced into committing to an inquiry. The issue I have with Barry and many other Labour MPs when they say, or former MPs so on, they say we've had an inquiry. Everybody who has looked at the J report and the inquiry in 2022 knows it was not exclusively focused on the rape gangs. It only looked at a small handful of areas. It didn't treat this as what it is, which is a national systemic scandal which needs tougher recommendations than what the J report delivered.
Matt, you see, I agree with you. I'm perfectly open to there being an inquiry into that systemic situation, looking at it structurally, looking at what actually went on. And yes, if we can apportion blame and we can cast a light on what went on further, I'm very open.
Just say that, though, Barry. Why didn't Keir Starmer just stand up yesterday and say it?
Look. It's been very clear that the government and Jess Phillips has said that they're open to this happening. But the point of, and you know how politics is played, and Miriam will confirm this, what happened yesterday was the Conservatives tried to score what was actually a cheap political point when the real issue was how do we protect children? And that's what the bill that we passed yesterday does. Children are safer today because we passed that bill. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have an inquiry, but children are now safer because we passed that legislation.
Where are you, just to bring you in on this, do you think there should be a specific inquiry into Pakistani grooming gangs across the UK?
I think there should be a specific inquiry into all grooming gangs.
Absolutely.
Pakistani grooming gangs comprise a very small amount of the grooming gangs and child sex abuse in this country.
50 towns up and down the country.
Most child sex abuse is sadly by men who are white and within families. That's the sad reality. But we need an investigation into the grooming gangs, absolutely. But what distresses me is that Professor Alexis Jay did a 7-year inquiry, 7 years, and she did look at grooming gangs, among other issues, and she came up with some fantastic recommendations, none of which were acted upon by the Conservative government. The number one issue has got to be that it's a criminal offence for a professional as a teacher or a social worker to fail to identify and report abuse.
Are you not concerned when you see the scale of the problem when it comes to what is specifically going on in the Pakistani communities around the north of England? Are you not think there's a pattern there?
Yeah, I'm absolutely concerned about it, but I want to caveat, this is not, we should in no way blanket brand the whole Pakistani community. It's a tiny, unrepresented minority who are condemned by other Pakistani people. And we should focus on the other grooming gangs who are because
condemned loudly by other Pakistani Muslims, though. There's been a deafening silence within Pakistani Muslim communities on this issue. Let's be honest. And what you're doing, Peter, is quite disingenuous because you're adapting the definition of the rape gangs. If you look at organised gang-based child sexual exploitation, Pakistani Muslims are significantly more likely to engage in that practice than any other group. So it's not the case, as you say, that, well, actually, we should look at white people rather than Pakistani Muslims.
No, not rather, as well as.
But I think this is such a problem within this particular community. We need a specific inquiry.
Yes, shall I
But the problem we've got here, though, is that, yes, I completely agree, the former inquiry did not cover what it should have covered. It whitewashed some areas, and it was much broader. But many people, including yourself, are saying if only we implemented this recommendation, mandatory reporting of sexual abuse of children. But the problem is, social workers, police, teachers, others knew that children as young as 12 and 13 were having sex with adult men. They didn't see it as abuse because we now have this culture that as long as you say you consent, that's fine. And unless we change that, unless we actually have an age of consent again, even if we did implement that recommendation, it would be meaningless. Because as long as you say, this child says, I want to have sex, I want to be in this relationship, fine, then it's not abuse. That's the culture we've got to change. That's the point.
I agree. We have to change that culture. But there were other recommendations.
Peter, do you? Because I'm glad that we've raised that issue, and I hope you don't mind me asking this. But I'm just going to read you an article in the Telegraph here, which I'm sure you're aware of. Peter Tatchell has argued that, quotes, children have sexual desires at an early age, and has praised, quotes, courage of those selling what he later described as a, quote, pro-paedophilia book.
I did not say that at all. I did not say that at all.
So you deny saying that, do you? And what is your view on the age of consent, and do you think children can have sexual desires at an early age?
The age of consent should be 16 as it is. Young people should be educated and empowered to know the difference between consent and abuse. To report. Let me finish.
To make a child think they consent. That's the point of grooming.
Yes, and there should be education about grooming and what it involves. There needs to be education to give young people the skills and confidence to report abuse, because so many young kids
responsible for their own abuse.
No, it isn't making them responsible.
It's illegal. End of story. If you say to a child, as they teach in schools, let's be honest, as long as it feels right, it's OK, children will continue to be abused. Making a child responsible for identifying when it's abuse, they may not recognise till at 20, 30, 40.
That's why we have
to say it's illegal.
That's why we have to do education about these issues, and child whistleblowers are absolutely essential to put these people behind bars.
You want to get involved?
Miriam, I agree with you. Where you were in Parliament when we passed the Coercive Control Bill, and you know exactly how difficult it is for people who are in a coercive relationship actually to understand even adults, to understand that they're being coerced. So it's absolutely vital that we do have those protections and that we have the education that Peter's talking about. But I wanted to pick up what Matt had said, because Matt, you said there's been a conspiracy of silence.
Deafening silence.
Deafening silence, you said. You're right, but it's been in every community we don't talk about this enough. We don't say that actually, if you look at the figures, and let's remember they were first published, the breakdown by ethnicity was first published by Labour in November last year, right? If you look at those figures, you find, as Peter pointed out, 76% of those who've been prosecuted have been white. Hang on. Yeah, but what I'm what I'm saying is that actually, why are we not talking about the problem that we have as a community?
No, absolutely.
Instead of saying this is a specific problem, it is a specific. It's a crime, crime is happening.
Problem.
Absolutely.
But what you see so often on the Labour side of this debate, and the reason this rape gang scandal is so difficult for people on the left, is because it turns on its head the progressive worldview, which is minorities are good, the majority is bad. And what we've seen over the last few weeks, let's be honest, this wasn't the first time that Labour refused a national inquiry in this vote, Barry. We had that when Oldham said, can we have a national inquiry? Jess Phillips and others said, not right now, sorry, you're going to have to handle it by yourself.
Do you recall...
Can I just finish? What people out there hear when Labour MPs talk about this is a desperate attempt to shift the focus off a minority community which has been caught out by all of the local independent reports. It was Labour MPs, remember, who said to Anne Cryer in the early 2000s, you're a racist, you're an Islamophobe for talking about it. And it among others, who said to people...
Well, let me respond. I've let you finish. I've let you finish, so let me respond, OK? You're quite right. The first person, the very first person to call this out was Anne Cryer, who was a Labour MP. OK? So let's not say it was Labour MPs that said don't be racist. It was a Labour MP who was the very first person with incredible courage. She lost her seat as a result, as an MP, because the community turned against her. Right? But she had incredible courage, and she called it out, and she was a Labour MP. So please, Sarah, who's a wonderful colleague.
I'm going to press pause on this for a second. Is just to bring in the chair of the Women's Policy Centre, Paola Diana, who commissioned this report. Paola, thank you very much. I believe that you've been sitting there listening to this back and forth for quite a while. The poll that you commissioned for YouGov showed that 76% of people did want an inquiry into this issue, and I believe it was 77% of people as well wanted people who committed these crimes to be deported if it was possible. So what's your take on the findings and what you've heard here tonight so far?
Thank you, Patrick, for having me. Our poll shows that Keir Starmer is completely out of touch with the public. It's not the far right who wants a public national inquiry on this incredible scandal. It's the British people. We need to listen to the British people. Keir Starmer should change his stance on that. And these girls were not only groomed. I don't like this polite, language. They were raped. They were tortured. They were filled with crack heroin when they were 11, 12. Some of them were 8 years old, and some of them were killed as well. Can we name this girl? Because we forgot their names. Lucy Lowe, she was burned with all her family. Charlene Downs, she might have become kebab meat for what we know, and the perpetrators, they're still around. They were not convicted because not enough proof, because there is no body. Victoria Agolya, she was 15 years old when she died from a heroin injection. Becky Watson, she was 13. Vicky Round, she was 20, injected with heroin and cocaine and crack just at the age of 12 for 8 years. And Laura Wilson, she was 17 years old and she was tortured since she was 12. This is an epic scandal. It shows misogyny, systemic misogyny, particularly also within the police forces. What were these policemen finding these naked girls with middle-aged Pakistani men in a room think? Why they didn't arrest these men? Why these men are rotten in jail? So we are furious. As a mother, as an advocate for women's rights, I'm furious. And I tell you, a lot of people out there are furious. This is not just...
Well, Paula, can I just say thank you for coming on and speaking so passionately about it, actually, and thank you for commissioning this polling as well and giving us first look at it here at GB News. Much appreciated, and I do hope to talk to you again very soon. It's Paula Diana there, who is the chair of the Women's Policy Centre. We're going to whiz it on to our next topic that's wrapped up in all of this now, which is Labour Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips. She said that she thought about quitting her job over the apparent abuse that she's received after Elon Musk called her a, quote, rape genocide apologist.
I'll be completely honest with you, Beth. There is those moments where you go, is this the life I asked for? I was a direct service provider before I was an MP, and you think, maybe I'll just go back to doing that. Maybe I'll just go back to running a local women's refuge. I don't need this.
Miriam, we don't want to pigeonhole you as the only woman on the panel. How do you feel there about listening to Jess Phillips? Because, to be fair, she's not always been that nice about you, has she?
No, she has. I don't know her. I've only spoken to her once. It was a perfectly pleasant conversation, but she decided to name me as a horrible person in an interview with The Times. Very random. But so she certainly knows how to dish it out. But on a human level, I do feel immense empathy with her. I know exactly what it is like to have your name in the headlines, accused of something, to know that everybody's looking at you, to feel unsafe. And unfortunately, that is what goes with politics these days. So I do feel enormous empathy for her on that front. I don't think she's a brilliant safeguarding minister, but I also don't think she's a rape apologist. She's done a lot for domestic violence. And I think she is probably struggling with exactly the same culture clash that Matt's talked about, which is she believes in women's rights, she believes in children's rights, but she's also been caught up with this progressive idea that all cultures are equal, that women don't need protecting, all these kind of things, that men can be women for goodness sake. And she is experiencing that firsthand. But on a human level, I feel sorry for her, and no politician should be targeted in a national and even international way in the way that she has.
She is, Barry, I suspect, a bit of a victim of the things she said in the past, because she said, she's on record on LBC, saying that this grooming gang issue is still going on up and down the country. And then when she was there, saying in some of these interviews, Barry, how upset and hurt she was and how at risk she was, and I sympathise with that. She was asked the killer question then, Barry, which is, have you spoken to any of the victims of the Oldham grooming gang? And she said no. And I do wonder if some of this criticism is actually just because she's not doing her job.
Well, look, let's just establish here that we're talking about aggression and violence against women. And yet here one of the most powerful men in the world has used his platform to express his aggressive message against a woman. Somebody who purports to be on the side of women, on girls, to be protecting them, and yet he's abused her in this way, calling her, well, I don't want to repeat it, OK? So there's an irony there, and I'm really grateful to Miriam for the way in which she has, shown sisterly solidarity, if I can put it that way, because I think that's right. And Miriam knows, as I do, because we stood there in Parliament, we sat there year after year, when every year, even when she was a backbencher, it was Jess Phillips that brought to Parliament and read out the names of every woman and girl who had been murdered by a man in the past year. And she does that to this day. She has fought, before she came into Parliament, she was in charge of women's refuges. She has always fought for women and girls. And I think the abuse that she's taken, I really do understand why.
Can I just say something? Yes. I think, it is also true, though, and I'll be very honest with people, that there is a section of our media class, our political class, who are desperate to make this a story about Jess Phillips rather than what it is a story about, and it's a story about young, white, working-class girls who have been systematically abused by organised Pakistani Muslim gangs. That's the reality of this situation, and the idea that Jess Phillips is a model of good behaviour in public office, the things she said about other politicians, some of whom are here tonight, I think there is a big dose of hypocrisy that is running through this debate.
I think the way Jess can redeem herself, if people have criticism, I think she's done a fantastic job defending women and girls, but is to implement the J report, to make it a crime for professionals not to report child sex abuse or to cover it up, to establish a new child protection authority, to create a central database, which has already been partly done, but not fully, to record the ethnicity of the perpetrator and victim and the location, because that would enable us to identify where grooming gangs are operating.
OK, right, now, we are going to welcome into the fray a lady who's probably been sitting on the line for quite a while, so apologies about that, Christine, but it is the Lib Dem MP and the party spokesperson for Women Inequalities, Christine Jardine. Christine, thank you very much. Welcome back to the show. Great to have you here. Look, I have to start by asking, why did you abstain yesterday on that vote? Because, you know, a lot of people are thinking we should you have not voted for a public inquiry into these rape gang situations. Explain that to me.
What we didn't want to do was to block important child protection measures in the bill, and that is why we didn't support the Conservatives, because we felt that what they were doing was simply a move to distract from the fact that they hadn't enacted Professor Jay's report, which we feel should be enacted, and that the important thing, the immediate thing we have to do is put in place as many protections for young people, for children, for young women as we can, which this bill aims to do. Now, on the subject of an inquiry, we have forward an amendment which will now be heard at committee stage, which does call for the inquiry recommendations to be enacted and for a constant inquiry and updating and looking at the problem in this country and ensuring that the protections are in place and that we are tackling the problems. And we think that has to be done, but the immediate priority was to get this bill through its second stage so that we can make sure protections are in place. And that is why we didn't support it. But we didn't object to the idea of an inquiry or to an inquiry.
OK, I'm going to ask you, look, in your position as Women and Equalities, Christine, and you say that you obviously deeply care about the issue when it comes to grooming gangs. It's a question that stumped Jess Phillips the other day. I'm going to ask it to you. In the last, few days and week or so, since this story's been all over the media, have you personally spoke to any grooming gang victims yourself?
I don't want to put them through the trauma of going through it all again. That is, we should be supporting these women. We should be making sure that we put the protections in place that they can rely on which is another reason why Professor Jay has talked about the importance of enacting her protections so that we do prevent these women having to go through the trauma again.
I get that, but Christine, do you not think they might appreciate a call from the Lib Dem Women and Equalities spokesperson? Christine, do you not think they might appreciate a phone call?
I do think, well, first of all, it's a breach of GDPR for anybody to tell me who they are. That you must be aware of that.
Okay.
That
some of them are on record, Christine.
If they are on record, I am more than happy. I am more than happy for them to contact me, but it would not be right for me to breach their privacy or for me to breach the GDPR by contacting them. If they contact me, of course.
How do you know that what you want to do is what they want then, Christine? Sorry, but just got to ask you this. How do you know then, if you've not really spoken to any of them, that you're doing what they want you to do?
Because I talk all the time to the groups who are important in my constituency. I have women coming to me in my constituency. I'm not going to reveal who they are. I have women coming to me from my constituency, from other groups. I'm a member of the Women and Equality Select Committee. We listen to the problems. We talk to groups. We are aware of the concerns and of the problems in this country. And I would just like to say it's significant that both Barry and Miriam were defending, they're speaking up for Jess Phillips against, as Barry points out, the irony of one of the world's most powerful, richest men attacking a woman on this issue specifically.
All right. Christine, look, a massive thank you to you, as always, for coming on and for making the time for us here at GB News. Thank you so much. Christine Jardine there, who's Lib Dem MP and party spokesperson for women. Now, we've got a lot to talk about, obviously. Barry, I've got to go. We'll be back in 2 minutes. You can do it then. All right, coming up, does Keir Starmer, in his previous guise as Director of Public Prosecutions, have anything to answer for when it comes to the grooming gang scandal? We're going to be looking at that and whatever Barry wants to talk about as well.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to stay cold out there for the next 24 hours. Frost and ice are the main issues because for most it will be dry as this area of high pressure moves in. However, we keep the northerly winds for the north of Scotland, the east coast as well, so further showers coming through overnight. And where those showers fall onto the cold surfaces, of course, there's always the risk of icy patches. In fact, just about anywhere could see slippery surfaces by the start of Friday. For most, though, it's a clear night with freezing fog patches forming Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the Midlands, and temperatures dropping below -5, below -10 in places. It's not going to be quite as cold in the far southwest because here we've got an Atlantic front moving in. That's going to bring out breaks of rain with snow falling above 150 metres. So Dartmoor, a few more centimetres of snow. At lower levels, it's rain, but that rain falling onto cold surfaces, again, bringing the risk of ice. Elsewhere, for the vast majority of the UK, it's dry and clear as we start off Friday. But there will be those freezing fog patches, so poor visibility for parts of Northern Ireland into Wales, the Midlands, for example. And that fog will be slow to clear. Where we've got the fog, of course, temperatures will be suppressed throughout the day, not rising above 0 in many places. But where we've got the cloud and those outbreaks of rain, it's going to be a touch milder, although the rain will tend to fizzle away by the afternoon, and most places will end up dry, a few showers into the north and the east. Temperatures 0, 1 degrees at best in many places. Saturday starts off in a similar vein. We've got widespread freezing fog across central and eastern parts of England in particular. We've also got this area of patchy rain into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, again giving some sleet and snow over the hills. But eventually that moves through and we see a gradual lift in temperatures into next week.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
OK, so the Prime Minister is facing massive backlash after he skipped a vote in Parliament last night on an amendment to force a grooming gangs inquiry. But going back even further, his tenure as Director of Public Prosecutions and how he handled grooming gang cases back then has also been in the spotlight. Let's just take a listen now to what our Prime Minister said back in 2013 during his time at the CPS.
The assumptions that were made included the assumption that a victim of child sexual abuse will swiftly report what's happened to them to the police, will be able to give a coherent and consistent account first time, that they will not themselves have engaged in any offending or other behaviour, and that they will not have misused drugs or alcohol at any stage. Those assumptions do not withstand scrutiny. They've got to change. The guidelines make that clear, and so this is a clear break with the past.
So, Matt, how do you respond to that then? That Keir Starmer there in 2013 is apparently saying, look, we're going to change these guidelines and make it easier to prosecute grooming gang offenders.
I think from what I've seen from that time in his career, he did talk about these issues and he seems to have intervened. But I think the problem Starmer has today is that everybody out there in the country is looking at the party he's leading, of which he is a symbol, and they're saying, well, where was the Labour Party on this issue throughout the 2000s and the 2010s? In fact, last night on GB News, we had Sue Reid, a prominent journalist, saying she knew about this scandal as early as 1996. Charlie Peters has said rumours were going on as early as the 1980s. But where was the Labour Party on this issue through those years? And I think Starmer's become a symbol of that.
OK, Barry, I'll bring you into this now, because there was a case in Rochdale where, this is during Starmer's time as DPP, where a teenage girl, a young girl, went into a kebab shop and she was kicking off. And the police came and they arrested her. And when she got to the police station, she said, people who work at this kebab shop, they raped me. And she provided the police with her underwear, and it did have DNA information on it. Now, Starmer was head of the DPP then. There were no charges made there at the time because she was deemed to not be, quotes unquote, a credible witness. So he's not blameless in everything, is he? He can't claim responsibility for all the good stuff without maybe having to look at himself about some of the bad stuff.
Let me first of all take on what Matt said. The first prosecution that was taken was in 2010. The first conviction was in 2011. Right? The whole period that you're saying, what was happening, why wasn't Labour doing something, was under a Conservative government, right? Let's just establish that in the first place. The second thing, look what Professor Jay actually said in her report about what Starmer had done. Starmer completely changed the culture at the DPP, as you heard in that clip. He said, look, it's always been the case that they haven't done this. I'm saying no, you don't let political correctness get in the way. You don't make these assumptions that women are...
Hang on a minute, Barry.
Sorry, no, I won't hang on a minute, actually, because that's exactly what we've just heard. He was the head of the DPP when he came in and he said, actually, what has gone on here was wrong, and I'm changing it. Now, look, in terms...
So how do you go from that Keir Starmer to the Keir Starmer that everybody out there sees today, which is, if you talk about this issue and the roots of this issue, you are amplifying the far right?
Sorry.
No, explain it to me. I don't understand it. I see what you're saying about Keir Starmer earlier in his career. So how on earth does he now come out and say, Matt, you're amplifying the far right?
I'm delighted that you're giving Keir Starmer the credit for the changes that he did make in the DPP and the way in which these cases were dealt with. So that's good. That's common ground that we have. What he's saying now is that people who are on the far right are trying to use this issue as a wedge issue, right? They're trying to make it all about race instead of about crime. Okay. Right. And I think where Miriam and I would agree here is these people are criminals. All right. I don't care which the community they come from. They're wrong. Fine. We need to nail them and we need to put them behind bars.
Because Miriam, from my perspective, I would have thought if I was Keir Starmer and I was really proud of all the work that I've done as DPP, I would welcome the kind of inquiry that was just voted out yesterday.
Well, that is a good point, and he certainly doesn't have a poor record as far as I can tell. But I think what we've got to remember is that the DPP would not be involved with day-to-day decisions about whether or not you prosecute crimes at a police station in Rotherham. And the problem is much more institutional than that, systemic than that, which is that people at the bottom of the chain, if you like, in the CPS, were saying to the police, do you know what, this has got no chance of a conviction, therefore we're not going to prosecute. Now, you can blame Starmer as the leader of the organisation for that, but it's much more institutional. And the problem does get back to exactly how do we deal with crime. Now, there is a specific issue of the modus operandi of these Pakistani gangs. There is no question about that. It is very different to other kinds of child abuse. But there's also an issue of how poorly we treat crime. I think the average sentence in 2020 for assault of a child under 13, sexual assault, was 3 years, 6 months. In some countries, you would get hung for those offences. It's hardly surprising that so many people will take the risk because the sentences are so poor. Now, could Keir Starmer have done something about that? No, not really. It's a matter for Parliament, but maybe that's something he could do now.
Well, tell you what the Labour Party are doing now, and I'm going to put this to you, Peter, although you're not a representative of the Labour Party, to be fair, but I want your views on it, which is that the Daily Mirror released an article just before we came on air which said that what Labour are doing is that apparently the Home Office and their extremism unit, counter-extremism unit, are going to be monitoring Elon Musk online and his tweets online. The timing of that I thought was fascinating because there you go, that's the headline. Elon Musk tweets probed by UK counter-extremism unit as alarm raised over risk to Britain. We went to the Home Office on this, they confirmed it. They confirm this is happening. Now, Peter, so they're doing this instead of having an inquiry into Pakistani gangs?
Well, I haven't seen anything that Elon Musk has tweeted, offensive though it is, that justifies being categorised as extremist and therefore within the remit of the counter-extremism unit. I think that is a step too far. Hopefully they're going to investigate it quickly and decide no case to answer. But, you know, Elon Musk's interference in our politics is a bad move for democracy. Billionaires throwing their weight around, targeting politicians in this country, seeking to undermine them, whether they're of the left or the right, that is not part of a responsible adult democracy. And I think Elon Musk ought to butt out of it.
Just briefly on this, why on earth is the Home Office counter-extremism unit not spending its time investigating the estimated 40,000 extremist Islamists in this country rather than Elon Musk's tweets? Why? The answer is we know why. Counter-extremism training regularly includes mainstream conservatives. We know this from leaks. People like Douglas Murray, respected authors, best-selling authors, have been included in prevent training to counter so-called extremism. It's because the Home Office and other institutions lean so strongly to the left, they've lost touch with reality. They take conservative ideas, they think they're extremists. They take Elon Musk, they think he's an extremist because he's calling out the officially approved narrative.
I agree with you that, sadly, the fear of being labelled racist or anti-Muslim has led to police and prosecutors pulling back from doing thorough investigations. That's absolutely wrong. I can remember campaigning 30 years ago against Islamic extremists who were going to our universities and saying that women who have sex outside marriage should be killed, that Jews could be killed, that LGBT plus people should be killed. No police or prosecutors would take action.
And that is the problem with this idea of protected characteristic, which is now enshrined in our law in the Equalities Act, which the Conservative Party should have repealed in the last government. The idea that some people are protected because they're Muslim, because they're LGBTQ, whatever it is part of the problem here, that the police are not prosecuting people with this protected identity because they fear the consequences.
But the protected...
We should be equal under the law.
But the protected identity does not excuse crime.
Right, OK,
No, exactly.
Sorry, Peter, I've got to get Barry on this, because just on that specific issue of that headline there, I understand that you might not have seen that before you came to air. Maybe you did, I don't know. But the Home Office has confirmed that they are using the counter-extremism unit to look at Elon Musk. I mean, surely that's a mistake.
Look, I haven't seen... I agree with what Peter said. I haven't seen anything that would justify that. But I would just, in response to what Matt said, it doesn't mean that they're not looking at all the other things as well. And he characterised it as, why are they looking at this and they're not looking at all the other stuff? They probably are looking at all the other stuff. In fact, I'm damn sure they are looking at all the other stuff. The point here is why is the guy who is probably the richest man in the world setting out, as he has done, saying that he is going to undermine the British government, that he's trying to get rid of a recently democratically elected government in this country. That is not good for democracy.
You belong to a party that sent activists to America to actively plot to, and I quote, kill Elon Musk's Twitter. Labour activists... In a centre for countering digital hate that was set up by a certain Morgan McSweeney, happens to be Keir Starmer's chief of staff. I wonder why Elon Musk has suddenly got a really strong interest in Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. Because let's be honest, Barry, all of those statements that Labour MPs made about Donald Trump, all of those bizarre statements they made about Elon Musk, guess what? These guys don't really like that. They don't like being abused. They don't like being insulted. So they're going to call you out when you fail, like when you fail with these white working-class girls in communities.
Well, look, it is about the richest man in the world trying to undermine democracy. That is wrong. And if you can't see that, Matt, then I would be very surprised.
I've spent more of my time recently looking at how the Labour Party has been undermining free speech and free expression.
We're going to have to put it on because our final topic of this particular show is going to be whether or not we should be doing more to deport some of these grooming gang abusers. One's been scheduled for deportation 11 years ago, currently working as a takeaway delivery driver in Rochdale. Not great, is it? I'll see you in a sec.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny skies in southern and eastern Spain this weekend, but there will be a few showers heading into Portugal. Largely fine conditions across the Canaries. Lots of sunshine here. There are those showers heading into Portugal. Sunny in southern Spain and up towards Barcelona. Of course, for the Balearics as well. A few showers drifting across southern Italy. Warm in Rome for the time of year, but it will turn cooler here as well. A few showers across Croatia. Small chance of a shower or two in Cyprus on Saturday as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With the dawn of the new year come new opportunities for the stage. Stefan Kyriazis joins us now to share how he started 2025.
We've got Sigourney Weaver, Hollywood star, coming in as Prospero in The Tempest. It's an experience Sigourney Weaver has got this kind of patrician presence. She's always on stage, sat watching or stalking the area, but she doesn't quite get the Shakespearean rhythms for me. We've got more trauma for you, and we've got a little clip to run first. Cat on a hot tin roof. I don't know how people's Christmases were with their families, but this is a very unhappy family, so you can feel good about your family, whatever they're like. This is Tennessee Williams' deeply unhappy story of a family in sort of plantation south. The patriarch, Big Daddy, is dying, although he doesn't know it yet. Everyone is manoeuvring around him. Everyone is pretty unpleasant, pretty unhappy. It's all based on nobody really telling the truth. Everyone's suppressing things.
Got one more thing for us?
We do. And suddenly, sunshine, life, joy. It's Nutcracker, but in Havana. Which is from Carlos Acosta. It's a very Cuban feel. And again, we've got a lovely little clip to cheer us all up.
Good.
That. There was no Christmas when he was growing up. Castro had banned it all. So we've got this setting in Cuba, and instead of magicians, you've got the uncle coming back from Miami, loads of presents. It's just full of joy. And you've got a reworked music. I love the Tchaikovsky score to death. But this one has been added, so you've got kind of Caribbean flutes and lutes and guitars. Huge exuberance, colourful, bright.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Final section of the show now, arguably the most important. As you've been hearing, some convicted grooming gang offenders have still not been deported from this country. And speaking in the House of Commons yesterday, Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe raised this issue. He actually went one step further.
The government commit to urgently deporting all guilty foreign nationals involved, including family members who were aware of the crimes and therefore complicit. These individuals are just as guilty as the rapists themselves. Will the government commit to stripping citizenship from dual nationals implicated and deport them as well? Will the government commit to pausing all Pakistani visas and foreign aid into the country until the Pakistani government agrees to accept any of its deported citizens that have perpetrated these crimes on British soil, and also imprisons these rapists and their accomplices in Pakistan, however they see fit?
Right, a couple of points I'd like to raise there, Miriam. Do you think that we should be deporting the families of some of these monsters if they knew about it and didn't report it? And secondly, should we be halting immigration from Pakistan until they take some of these people back?
Well, I certainly think anybody convicted of a crime who has dual nationality or nationality from another country should be deported. I mean, I think that was such an obvious thing to do. If a family member has not committed a crime, no, they shouldn't be deported, because we are a country that follows the rule of law. And the minute we start to change the rules for a certain group of people because of any event, we are actually just as bad as any country that doesn't abide by the rule of law. So, no, we shouldn't unless they've actually committed a crime. The problem is our system is so slow, the Home Office is so slow, that I think I read about a case today where the Home Office did try to deport someone with dual nationality. By the time they did the paperwork, that person had actually applied to remove their foreign nationality.
They had, and he's called Quarry Ralph. He's called Quarry Ralph, and he's been in Rochdale. He was scheduled for deportation 11 years ago, now works as a delivery driver, which conceivably, Peter, would mean that he could deliver a pizza to one of his victims who still live in the area. Should we not be doing more to deport these people?
I think certainly with regard not just to child sex abuse, but other serious crimes as well, people who get those crimes and are convicted, they should be deported.
You've gone a bit right-wing tonight, Peter.
Well, I think there's, there is a responsibility. If you live in this country and you agree to be part of this country, you have to abide by the rules.
Barry, what about
and citizenship isn't just a free pass, it requires obligations and commitment.
What about that thing about halting Pakistani immigration until they decide to uphold what many people regard as their end of the bargain, which is taking these monsters back?
I absolutely agree with Miriam that we need to apply the rule of law and sanction everybody who's guilty of a crime. And I'm horrified by the case that she highlighted, that this has been going on for 11 years. That's 11 years where the Conservative Home Office has done nothing. And you asked the Liberal Democrat woman earlier, you said, have you met with anybody? Have you spoken to these victims? Why was it that the then Women and Equalities Minister, who is now the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Conservative Party, also has not at any time either as Women Equalities Minister or as leader of the Conservative Party, spoken and met with those
we've
women.
got about 45 seconds.
Yeah, but Barry, you're not actually telling us, would you support deporting dual nationals convicted of grooming gangs?
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely.
Right, that's great, because what we're going to do next year is we're going to give Pakistan £133 million, right? We should start using foreign aid, visas, to apply pressure to these countries to take people back. And the poll tonight, 77% of Brits say, get these guys out of our country. So when you saw MPs in that video there, rolling their heads, tutting away as Rupert Lowe asks these pretty serious questions, they are so out of touch with the people in this country. It's unbelievable.
Look, we're taking off air in 20 seconds.
It's all criminals.
All right, OK. Like, thank you. That was a tremendous show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching at home, or you're watching it on catch-up, or you're listening on the radio, I hope you feel as though we did that topic justice. I'll be ready to go again tomorrow at 9 p.m. Headliners are up next with all of your front pages, so keep it GB News.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to stay cold out there for the next 24 hours. Frost and ice are the main issues because for most it will be dry as this area of high pressure moves in. However, we keep the northerly winds for the north of Scotland, the east coast as well, so further showers coming through overnight, and where those showers fall onto the cold surfaces, of course, there's always the risk of icy patches. In fact, just about anywhere could see slippery surfaces by the start of Friday. For most, though, it's a clear night with freezing fog patches forming Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the Midlands, and temperatures dropping below -5, below -10 in places. It's not going to be quite as cold in the far southwest because here we've got an Atlantic front moving in. That's going to bring out breaks of rain with snow falling above 150 metres. So Dartmoor, a few more centimetres of snow. At lower levels, it's rain, but that rain falling onto cold surfaces, again, bringing the risk of ice. Elsewhere, for the vast majority of the UK, it's dry and clear as we start off Friday. But there will be those freezing fog patches, so poor visibility for parts of Northern Ireland into Wales, the Midlands, for example. And that fog will be slow to clear. Where we've got the fog, of course, temperatures will be suppressed throughout the day, not rising above 0 in many places. But where we've got the cloud and those outbreaks of rain, it's going to be a touch milder, although the rain will tend to fizzle away by the afternoon, and most places will end up dry, a few showers into the north and the east. Temperatures 0, 1 degrees at best in many places. Saturday starts off in a similar vein. We've got widespread freezing fog across central and eastern parts of England in particular. We've also got this area of patchy rain into Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and the southwest, again giving some sleet and snow over the hills. But eventually that moves through and we see a gradual lift in temperatures into next week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£50,000 in tax-free cash is like having over £4,000 each month to play with for a whole year. And it could be yours in the biggest Great British giveaway so far. That could be a holiday each month, your mortgage covered, or just the ability to send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge.